Hello, everyone. How's everybody doing?
Pretty good. How about you? We got a great guest tonight.
Yeah, we do. I was just carried on when me and Matt and Lee were talking earlier, talking about writing on my new book. And I said, I just don't want to sound like the guy describing the tornado that tore up a meth lab. And me and Matt started going back and forth. It was hilarious.
It was. Y'all so crazy.
Lee's like, oh my God, y'all sound convincing.
Yeah. It's like, oh my God, y'all must have practiced this. They're like, nope.
No, don't need no dango practice now.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, guys, listen.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, but we gotta have fun, y'all. We gotta have fun. Adjust my head a little bit. I look like I was sitting up above the rafters in here.
Hey, Marla. How are you?
Hey, Marla.
Why don't we just bring him on in?
You ladies introduce our guest tonight.
Yes. Gwen, have you got his bio?
No, I don't have it pulled up, actually.
All right, but let's bring him in and talk to him. Let's do it.
Hey, Dave.
Hey, guys. How are you?
Good, man. Finally glad you got your camera issues fixed.
Yes.
Yeah, I never knew there was a switch up there, and I must have hit it with my finger. Had no idea.
Dude, it happens to the best of us. I'm an IT guy that do mess like that, so.
I fight mine all the time. The next thing will be it's trying to go to your phone instead of your laptop. And
I turned that off. I nixed that problem.
And just to let you know, dude, that's just one of our glitches. Our gremlins that Gwen likes to call them.
Yep.
Yes,
we have weird stuff happen on our shows.
Every
so don't
show.
be surprised if you hear voices that are children.
Yeah, go back and listen, see if there's any EVPs.
You'll hear voices that aren't ours. And none of us have children home. All our children are grown and moved out of the house. But we'll get little children come on and start laughing or start just saying
Blink's house is haunted. Yeah, Blink's house is haunted. My house is haunted, and Gwen's haunted. So
Gwen's haunted.
I'm just haunted. It's me. And I have a spirit guide that's a kid, and she'll laugh at us all the time. So.
Yeah, bless her sweetheart.
Well, you'll have that when you're running a paranormal show. I mean, that's par for the course, right?
We love it.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Goblin gremlins.
Goblin
gremlins. So I've seen pretty much all your shows that you've done, and there's been a lot. So,
yeah, more coming too.
Good.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And everybody, you saw the opener, everybody. Here's a picture of Dave at a paranormal conference, and you can see there he is with all of his books.
That's a few of them, yeah.
Oh, that's a few of them. There's more? Oh my God. I thought I got them.
Yeah, there's been more since that picture was taken. But.
How many do you have now?
I have 11 that I've written myself, and then I've contributed to a few other people's books as well. And more coming out as we speak. So, I mean, I started writing later, and everything I write about is based off my investigations and experitions.
So that's
over the last 30 plus years of doing this stuff. You know, it just takes a lot longer to write a book than it does to, experience an actual investigation. So what I do is everything I write about, I have on tape, so I can go back. Yeah. And go back and watch the video of the investigation, and then I write about it. So that's the way I do stuff.
That's what I'm doing right now. I'm going back to when I first started investigating in 1985. And I'm just getting stories. I wrote like 4 chapters of it today, which is good for me because the running joke with me when I started doing these radio shows, I used to joke around with authors, say, yeah, I'm going to write a book too, a connect the dot coloring book. And then Lee encouraged me. We wrote a book together with her husband and her mom that we use for teaching. Hey, Nancy. That we use to teach psychic kids, their parents and stuff, how to go about dealing with a child that has gifts. Mm-hmm. So that was my first foray into the book writing. But when did you start investigating, Dave?
I really started playing around with it as a young man because I had my own experiences, and I'm of Generation X, so I grew up watching In Search Of, and
thank you.
So many of the original shows on this stuff, and I was like, hey, I can do that too. And I started experimenting and going when we would go out to cool places on family vacations. I'm from West Virginia originally, but my mom was remarried when I was a little guy, so my stepdad was in the Air Force, so I grew up on Air Force bases and out west. So I got to go to many crazy locations on vacation that we didn't know, that I really didn't know about at the time, that had all these ties to ancient Native American sites and skinwalkers and everything like that. And I was able to see some stuff on In Search Of, and I was like, man, I want to try that. And I had, I saw Hans Holzer on there for the first time. Yeah. And that Christmas I had gotten a tape recorder, and lo and behold, he had one just like it on In Search Of during the ghost episode. And I was like, hey, I can do that. So I started experimenting. And the first place I used it at was at a place called Mesa Verde in Colorado.
I know what that is.
Yeah, and if you know anything about that, that's where the Anastasi people were, and they just disappeared. No one ever knows what happened. Knew what happened to the tribe of people, right? They just kind of disappeared off the face of the earth. And I actually got my first 2 EVPs there. I got chanting and drumming, and there was no one else around that day. It was during the week. No park rangers, no other visitors. We had the place to ourselves.
Right on. It sounds like you started out like me, man, with a cassette recorder. You'll laugh at this being an Air Force guy. Our first investigation I did was where Sharon Tate was murdered in Cielo Drive. I was there for a school, a hazardous cargo school, and we had watched Helter Skelter. And I said, we're only 60 miles away from here. So we went old school, dude. We stopped at the gas station, filled up, got a map. Dude, this is what we had for equipment. An old cassette recorder, your favorite Lackland laser, you know what those are, and a Polaroid camera. That was my first paranormal investigating stuff.
Well, I mean, I always tell people your best tool is your body anyway. Of course, you can't beat magnetic tape for the most part, but like I was saying though, if you've ever been to Mesa Verde, it's a ginormous rock cliff that there's a whole Puebloan city built underneath, and there was literally thousands of people there. So when in its heyday, and to get something like that just blew my mind, and my mom was scared to death. I said, I was excited. I said, look, I got this, and she's like, I don't want to hear that. Turn it off. So when you get things like that, and then having had the experiences I had as a young man, it kind of just set the hook deeper, and it just snowballs on you, and it turned into a lifelong pursuit of answers. Really, it's a hobby gone insane, so to speak.
And that's what's so fun about it. It started out as we saw In Search Of. Then it's like myself, I've been an empath medium for 60 years. But I never investigated until 1985. So I've got 41 years of experience now.
hmm
And being an Air Force brat, I'm sure you got to see some cool places. I know when I was active duty, I investigated all over Europe, and they paid me to do it.
Yep,
That was
I
the
did
cool part.
too.
I got
Where
paid
did you
do
get
it.
to where did you get to investigate in Europe, Dave?
I did a lot of stuff over in Italy. I did the Colosseum. I did
Yes.
an old monastery that dates back to the 1500s that was abandoned. Believe it or not, an old cotton factory there was really cool. Got some crazy stuff, and I took when I went to Italy, I became an MP for the most part, and which back in those days it was called security forces. They've changed the name of this stuff, I don't know, like 5 times now.
Yeah.
But I had these 2 big black MP guys with me, security forces, and they wanted to go check out what I was doing, and we started hearing chanting and weird voices in there, and I heard all this footstep
wow.
commotion. I look, and those 2 guys were running away. They left me there by myself. And I'm like, where are you going?
They gone.
And they're like, man, screw you, man. You're crazy. But
Crazy white boy.
that's, they were pretty freaked out about it. But, yeah,
a lot of them with their feet and
there-
elbows running, right?
Yeah, there's so much history over there. Way more history than we have here, except for the Native American aspect. But
Yeah.
it was cool. And I've done some EVP work in England and other things like that. But in the future, a lot more coming from over there. I'll be going back over there
Yes.
numerous times. I mean, I'm working with Christopher Garetano now with his company, the guy who did Strange World, and I'm part of his company now, and we have a lot of projects planned. We got a new movie coming out this year called A Haunting We Will Go. It's his movie, but I'm in it. That's the first project I'm involved with him in, which I'm super excited about because he's real. And that's, that's who I want to work with. I don't want to work with these Hollywood people. They're fakes. That's 99% scripted, bunch of BS. And I'm also working with some friends of mine on their new fun show. It's called Booze, Brews, and Barbecue. And
I love it.
it's Barry Kurtz, the drummer for Shinedown. He's a friend of mine. And John Silver Spears is in security. And Ty Sherrill was a barbecue guy. So they put this fun concept together where they go to a town, they sample the local barbecue, the local breweries, and then they do a paranormal, situation. So they wanted me to be a part of it as their Yoda, as they call me, to teach them the basics of paranormal investigating. That's what I've done. And I'm not on every episode, but they bring me in. I was on three episodes the first season, and we're already getting ready to start filming season 2 with that. So a lot of fun.
Here's tribute to eat.
Yeah. And there's no, we don't drink during the paranormal investigation. That's we're there for 3 or 4 days. So
Right on.
one day is sampling the barbecue, one day sampling the brewery, and other days investigate.
Yeah, just take.
So we've had some really crazy experiences on that show too, and so it's a lot of fun. You got to have some fun when you're doing this, You can't be 100. You can't be serious all the time. But when I do what I do, I take it very seriously. So the other part's just fun. You get to eat all kind of great barbecue and drink a few beers if you want, or wine or liquor or whatever your forte is. So
see, the thing is, Dave, is you can have fun on an investigation and still be serious about it.
Sure,
Because
I do not
react to positivity.
Sure, yeah. That's why I try to tell people. A lot of times you'll get more responses and more activity when you're just sitting around BSing with each other than trying to make. I always tell people you can't make spirits do tricks. If they want to communicate, they will. And, in some cases, it's traumatic for them because they may not even know they have passed on.
Sure.
And then they see these weird people in their homes or their place of business, wherever you might be at investigating, and they can hear and see you, but you can't hear and see them, and they become extremely frustrated. And I think that's on occasion, that's when people sometimes get scratched, or they're saying, hey, they're lashing out because they want you to respond to them, but they can't figure out why you're just ignoring them. And a good example is that movie with The others with Nicole Kidman, they kind of touch on that, you know, and that's a reality of this too. And there's so many different aspects, so many different rabbit holes you can go down when you're doing anything having to do with a paranormal phenomena, whether it's cryptids, UFOs, hauntings. A lot of it overlaps for me, and that's why I've always been known for doing everything, because as an investigator and having my background as an investigator, you know, in law enforcement and everything else, you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't step outside the box and look in, because a lot of these things cross over numerous ways, numerous
Yes,
times.
they do.
So I wanted to let you know that Blaine is an Air Force guy, veteran. Gwen is also a medic. And so she's like you and Blaine. She doesn't really see things that spook her. When things get a little scary, that's when she zones in.
Yeah, I do.
Seen it, and it blew my mind. Me, I'm just a little bit excitable, but I've got a temper, and that kind of leads me through when something gets, you know.
Well,
I
you
mean,
know,
I'm
we
like,
all
oh,
have
no, you
our own
don't.
ways of
Stop
doing
that.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do.
But you know, your body, like I said, is your best tool. If you have the fight or flight situation going on and your body says flight, then take off, get out of there for a little bit. You know, listen to what your body's telling you, because we all have that built-in sensory situation where, hey, you just know it's time. Maybe we need to step out of here and take a break for a minute and take a new look at this, because you know this stuff can be dangerous.
It can.
Well, Dave,
Amber did
my
it with
body doesn't
questions
know
for
that
you.
fight or flight response. I've never ran from any spirit in my life. I want to talk to them.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If your body doesn't tell you that, then you do what you got to do. But other people, if their body says time to go, then it's time to go.
Oh,
And you
You
I'll
have to
tell
back
them,
out and
look, like,
strategize.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll tell them. I said, do you need to walk out of here for a little while? Okay, I'll walk out with you and get them calm down, because most of the problem I see, Dave, is these people tell spirits, let me give you my energy. And that irritates me to no end. I'm like, why would you give them your energy? Because they will drain you like a vampire.
Oh, yeah.
I said,
100%.
there's energy all around you. Yeah. But we see it quite a lot.
Yeah.
They'll
I mean,
see it on the TV
you know, some
show.
of us, I don't know, for lack of a better word, we're stupid and we go in when we maybe should be going out. I used to call that when I was young, doing this running and gunning, because I'm not scared of anything. But let me tell you, firsthand experience, I got really messed up a few times from doing that. And I had an attachment one time from a case that I lived in for over 30 days and went back 3 more times for 2 weeks at a time. And I had some major issues in my life happen after that I had to get taken care of spiritually, because I was, I'm the military mindset, Pharaoh. I'm not scared of nothing, especially a spirit. Well, let me tell you, you can get really messed up from this stuff. So you have to know how to protect yourself in whatever forte that is, and know how to put up that, invisible shield, bubble, whatever you use to protect yourself spiritually, because they can and will affect you in negative ways on certain occasions.
Can you
Dude,
see
I've
the
always
question
taken
there,
those as a
Dave?
badge of honor.
What's that?
There's a
Nancy's
question
asking a
there
question.
for you.
Oh yeah. Have I ever lived in a haunted location? I have. Well, I owned the notorious Willows Weep house. So, and then I also, the case I was just telling you about, I spent 30 days, 24/7 in that house up in PA, wrote a book about it called Wicked 46. And I went back 3 more times for 2 weeks at a time and physically lived in this place. It had ties to the Warrens from the 1980s, and it had ties to the Smurl case too. But there's a whole long story with that. But the place was super evil, super negative events happened there. The kind of events that stain a location in the building forever. Very horrible events, murder, suicide.
Is that where the guy killed himself in that chair? Kind of melted.
That was at Willows Weep. That was the house I bought
Weep.
just to have my own paranormal lab to do that with. After I did the Wicked 46 case, then that kind of dropped in my lap just a few short years later, and I took advantage. I said, well, doing what I do, this is a no-brainer. I should go ahead and do this because then I'll have my own paranormal lab and I can control the environment. You know, I pulled all the electric out of the house and everything just so I wouldn't get false positive. All the plumbing was out of the house. So, you know, it was a crazy, crazy situation. So
you shocked that lady when you offered to buy it. She looked like,
yeah,
whoa.
and that part in the
She
show
said, I'm not in it. You know, I'm not going back in that house.
Yeah, and that was a recreation of how it really happened, so to speak. It started on the phone, and I went there and bought it from her. But you know, you got to remember, paranormal TV is not always what you think it is. I mean, I'll tell you firsthand. Like when I told, you know, what started me in this was a Bigfoot sighting I had with my grandpa as a 13-year-old boy. I did that. I wrote the book called West Virginia Bigfoot. It had my story and all these other cases in it that I've investigated here in West Virginia for years. You know, other people's accounts that I had put together, and I wrote a book about it. Well, the TV people read my book, someone in TV land, and they contacted me. And next thing you know, I was telling that story, right? Well, I didn't know. I was naive to the TV world, so to speak. And I saw the episode come out like everybody else did. I didn't know how they were going to spin it, portray it, whatever. I just told my story, and I thought that's how they were going to tell it. Well, let me tell you something. They added things that didn't happen. They moved stuff around in different order, and I was livid because I
can imagine, dude.
You know, I want it told the way it happened. You didn't need to make it any scarier. It changed my life. It's why I do this, you know, today. And I was really naive to that whole situation. So you got to take paranormal TV with a grain of salt. Yeah, there's people on there sharing their experiences and their stories, but it might not be the whole and complete truth. You know what I'm saying?
Praise Jesus, I never had that.
Yeah, and in the contracts, you know, you go back and read the fine print, they say right in there, we reserve the right to portray this any way we see fit. So you basically are signing over your rights. And I didn't know that because I was naive. I was like, hey, this is fun. I get to tell my story on a TV show. And I was, you know, and I still tell that story at conferences I speak at to this day. I say, don't believe everything you see on paranormal TV, okay? Because it's just not, and especially a lot of the reality, you know, like Ghost Adventures and all these other shows, they're, you know, those shows are scripted. Now, I will tell you, I was on Ghost Nation about
the lead guy in the show. I'm not going to say his name to give me the credit, but his degree is in filmmaking from UCLA.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what he is a filmmaker.
Well, you know, I mean, yeah, it is. But here's the thing. Okay, let me tell you about Ghost Nation real quick. So you know, I get contacted by these type of people all the time. Hey, you got any good cases, Dave? What do you got? They want to have a certain aesthetic. They want to have, it needs to be this. It has to have all these parameters, right? And I'm like, okay, well, I got this case down in South Carolina that I've been working on for 2.5 years, Fonte Flora Plantation. That was my case. I told them about it, sent them some pictures of the location, and they wanted it. And I said, okay, well, we'll go do an episode there. So we did. Those guys are by the book. I'm proud to say I was there for 7 days straight with them. I was there the whole time. I saw everything they did. Nothing. It was not really scripted. They had a loose plan on the way, you know, ghost hunters and Jason, those guys do things. They go in, they say, okay, me and Steve will go up do this tonight, and you and Tango go do this, and you go do this, and then they just see what happens. So that's, you know, that's a good way of doing it. That's how most of us do it, right? Yeah. So I was happy to see that, you know, and I can speak to that because I was there. It was my case, the episode I was on with them. So other people I've talked to, been on some of these other shows, that total made up BS, you know, total scripted. Some of these shows acted like they were spending the night for 3 days. They didn't. They were back at the hotel partying, you know, the whole time. So you just got to remember, a lot of these shows are not what they say they are. That's why I'm super excited to be working with Christopher.
Yeah.
He's a filmmaker. He's also one hell of a investigative researcher and everything else. And he wants to do it. He's doing it, you know, for real. And that's why I'm excited. I could have had my own show a couple of times if I would have sold out. I never sold out. And I gave up a lot of money. Trust me. I gave up.
What I told him, Dave? I said, this is what I want. I want creative control. I want executive producer, and I want back end, and I will not fake anything.
Yeah,
We
they don't
can't
want
do
that. They don't want.
I just said I can't do that because I can't do your show. I probably cost myself a lot of money too, but I have integrity like you do.
Well, I just want you to know
Well, it's
I
not
never had
about that,
anything
though.
like
I
that
mean,
happen when I feel
for all of us,
possessed.
we want the real stuff, and it's not about manipulating and faking and stuff, because it's part of this is we're seeking answers. And where's the history and mystery of all this? They don't talk about that anymore. It's just, oh, it's a demon every week. No, it doesn't work that way. Get the hell out of here with that stuff.
Yeah, for real.
So it's all sensationalism and a bunch of other bull crap. So
sure.
So I've got some questions for you. The first one is Gwen's. The next one will be Blaine's for sure. So here you go, Gwen.
You've written 12 books. What
hear
experiences
me?
or encounters pushed you from From curiously?
Curiosity.
Yeah.
So you've written 12 books.
Yeah.
What experiences or encounters pushed you from curiosity into full commitment to the unexplained?
Well, like I said, my first two experiences, and this was when I was a very young kid, 13 and almost 16.
13.
So,
And it was a cryptid. That's
yeah,
scary.
it was a Bigfoot. what we would call a Bigfoot. What it really is, I don't know. All I know is I saw a giant hair covered humanoid walking on 2 feet, tearing the woods down and making the most god awful screaming, howling noise you can imagine. So my grandpa, if you ever followed that story, he was a preacher. He was also in the second wave at Normandy. He wasn't scared of anything. He was scared this time. He was a medic, so you can imagine what he saw on the beaches of Normandy being the second wave. The first wave was pretty much obliterated. So to him, it was a demon because he's old school fire and pulpit, pounding on the pulpit, brimstone type of preacher, Baptist preacher, right? So he wouldn't talk about it with me, which frustrated me because that's the man I look to for answers for all this, anything spiritual or weird or anything. And to him, he's like, that's a demon, son. We just don't talk about it because it brings it closer. I said, well, I don't think it's a demon, Pat, but it was something messed up, scared the hell out of me, man. I had nightmares for years over this thing. But it also sent me on this path of seeking answers, you know what I mean? And little by little, see, back then, you guys know, we didn't have the internet. We had the local libraries and the school library. So little by little, I started discovering magazine articles about the Yeti and these strange foot tracks in the Himalayas. Then I happened to see the show In Search Of, and I was like, that's what I freaking saw. The light, the light bulb came on, everything started clicking. And I said, this stuff is real. I'm not crazy. I really saw that, and because you kind of second guess yourself when you have an encounter, you're like, what, and so it just kind of started slowly snowballing. And then, you start getting your first EVPs and anything you're, kind of exploring. And it's just like that hook gets set and you're done, $100,000 of equipment later, tens of thousands of dollars spent on gas, fuel, and food and stuff going all around the country and the world doing this stuff. It just becomes an obsession, really. And, that's where I'm at with it. Always have been.
We all are. And it's funny, right before you started talking, dude, we got a child cry come over the thing. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I want to tell you when you were done. I was like, oh, that was a baby crying. Sweet.
Hopefully we won't have no electronical interference, which happens to me on some of these shows too when I'm on there. So you never know.
Okay, Blaine, here's your question, and nobody better than you for this one.
How did your time in the Air Force shape the way you approach paranormal investigations today?
Well, for me, Blaine, you become a trained observer. All right. So those skills are pretty much cemented in your brain because you do them over and over again in the military. Yep. And that's kind of how you're taught. And then if you go into any other type of law enforcement, like I did, you're taught investigative techniques and all kinds of other things. So that's we all kind of like build our own way of investigating, right? You learn through experience, or you learn through working with other people and maybe you like the way they do something. So you kind of implement that into your own toolbox, right? So that's kind of how I did it. I took law enforcement, the who, what, where, when, why, and how, looking outside the box, looking in,
Yes.
that type of thing. And that's how I do my stuff. Of course, I was lucky enough to know Johnny Zaffis and people for many years, and we did work with those type of people, and kind of sat back and watched and said, okay, I dig that. I like the way they do that. And, I kind of implemented that into my toolbox, so to speak. Some of the things he did and other people that I know that are old school investigators like Johnny and other folks.
Hey, what was your
that's exactly
AFSC? AFSC. What was your AFSC?
I started out in MWR, which it was no longer called that, and it merged with what they call services back then, which was everything like, you said, it was all recreational stuff for the troops. Like if I was deployed, I was in charge of bringing movies and I did all the fun stuff, man. I brought fun,
needed it.
but then I didn't go in for that. I was on like a hold, and they stuck me in there because I wanted to go in right away. So I didn't wait I was going to be a security forces. So there was no openings at the time. So I went in, got stuck in that, and then I cross-trained over into law enforcement and different things as an augmentee, and did that. I did all kind of different jobs. I was a helicopter gunner for a while in a certain unit and other things like that. So, I loved the Air Force. If I blew my knee out and I got out after 8 years of active duty, I didn't want to, but then I went into, got home, rehabbed my leg because they were going to stick me on the desk the rest of my military career. And I was like, nope. Came home and then rehabbed through the VA and everything and went into federal law enforcement. And I retired after 20 years of government service. So I was in federal. I did 1 year of state, and then I went into the federal law enforcement system.
That's awesome.
Remember the movie Con Air? Mm-hmm. I did a lot of that. I transported inmates, terrorists, you name it, all across the country via air, and with the U.S. Marshals and other folks. I was in the BOP, Bureau of Prisons. Okay. We worked hand in hand with those guys all the time. So.
Yeah, you walk like that. I can see that in you. All right, so I get a question. Okay, so what is one case you worked on that still unsettles you? Something that you can't fully explain. Something maybe, I guess, like stumped you or shook you, when people say, hey, that I'm shook, sometimes we have those moments.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know, these
I know cases, you don't really get shaken.
These cases are like an onion, every single one of them is different, but they have many layers. I've said this for years, you peel back one layer and all you come up with is more questions, and you peel back another layer, there's more questions. I don't know if we're even supposed to know any of this stuff, or if we're, it's being held back from us in some ways, but we get little tiny bits and pieces of the puzzle sometimes. And that's what it's all about for me. We're all on our own journey. We have our own reasons for doing what we do. We've all lost loved ones, and we maybe want to some people want to connect with them one more time because maybe they got killed in a car wreck or they died suddenly. Everybody has their own reason is what I'm trying to say. So I guess, there's been a few times when I've really been shaken up from some of this stuff. Like I said, I had that attachment thing that went on with me. That was unnerving when I realized, oh my God, I have an attachment. I've been scratched a few times. I had my arm fractured. I can't say it's 100% paranormal though. You'll never hear me say that because I just can't prove it. Anyone says they can prove it's lying because they can't. But I do believe, there's been many people convicted in the court of law off circumstantial evidence, right? So there's only so much thing as, certain circumstances. There's only so much of that you can say, well, wait a minute, But I've had my arm fractured at a place. I had my head cracked by something unseen. It was all caught on camera. And during the ghost box session that my buddy was running with me, he asked it. He said, "What did you do to Dave?" And he says, "I hit him." And and it came across a ghost box. I hit him, and then it went ha 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 like that. And then he said, "Well, what'd you hit him with?" And he said, "A shovel." And that whole story is crazy, and that'll be in one of my upcoming books. I have many books planned. I do a series for hauntings called Real Hauntings of. So the first one is out. Number one's been out for a few years, Real Hauntings of West Virginia. There'll be 3 volumes of that. There'll also be Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Kentucky, New Mexico, California, Florida, all these places I've investigated where I've compiled enough investigations to do a whole complete book on over 30 plus years of doing this stuff.
Right.
So, that'll be out in the Indiana version. So, of course, the Weave House was in Indiana. I've investigated many places in Indiana. That state has got a ton of haunting stuff. It's not called the Crossroads State for no reason. There's a lot of weird stuff in Indiana, let me tell you.
That's amazing, dude.
Gwen, can you
I
see
can
this
feel
one?
you. I'm sorry.
Excuse me.
Let me put my glasses on. That's okay.
Go ahead, Blaine.
Go ahead.
No, I didn't mean to step over there. I was just going to tell him I fell for getting hit by a spirit. I got punched in the face at Gettysburg by the train station. That
You
it
got
hit
punched in
me
the
so
face at
hard.
Holly
It made
Jail.
my eyes water. It made my nose. Oh, God, I know. And it made my nose bleed.
Oh,
And I
wow.
was with paranormal investigators who were seasoned. It freaked them out. Me, I took it as a badge of honor. That a
To each
spirit
their
calls
own.
for me to hit my head. Go for it. It didn't kill me. I'm all right.
But,
I was with him in Pauley Jail, and I saw his head snatched back, and he got punched in the mouth. And my God, he was pissed. He was so pissed.
well, it's kind of unnerving, though, when you realize that something has enough power to punch through to our side and physically hit you,
Yes.
mark you,
Yeah.
scratch you, whatever. It's like, whoa, that's taking some serious energy here. And maybe it's time to back off,
Yeah.
regroup, whatever. One of the
If
craziest
they can do
things, I'll
that,
tell
what
you-
else can they do to you?
right?
This one's yours anyway.
One of the craziest things.
I know.
that,
That's what scared. Remember, we're back. You remember the movie Ghost with Patrick Stewart? Excuse me. I'm sorry.
crazy.
There was a glitch, and I didn't hear you talking. I'm sorry. What were you
Oh,
saying?
that's okay. I was going to tell you about this place that it was really unnerving one time, real quick, if you want to hear it.
Yes, sure.
You ever heard
Yes,
of
please.
Revenant Acres? Revenant Acres in Indiana. Did you ever hear of that place?
I've heard of that place.
So it's shut down now, but it was a little bitty old farmhouse out in the middle of these cornfields, in the middle of this small town,
Oh man, that sounds
right next to
scary.
a 4-lane state highway, and it sits right on the road. But there was all kind of stuff that went on there. I was in there with 2 other guys. This place is really nasty, negative feeling too. And we're upstairs. There's only 1 bedroom upstairs. So you go up the stairs and you're in this bedroom, and it was the whole walls and ceiling, everything painted black in this thing. And it was like that when it was people living in there, and all kind of debauchery and things went on. And we started hearing heavy footsteps downstairs, to the point I pulled my pistol out because I thought somebody was in the house with us. And I'm waiting for him to come up the stairs, and I'm like, "Who is it? You better stop right now." I'm armed, and I was still in active law enforcement at the time. And you hear this walking, comes right up the stairs, boom, 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 nothing. And I was like, "Whoa, that was freaky." And they all felt it, heard it. And then we go back in the room. We got a ghost box, and we were live when this happened. And it sounded like a freaking bomb hit the house, and the entire house shook. It was just like this big boom, to the point where we thought an 18-wheeler came off the highway and hit the house right after the footsteps.
That's a lot.
And
Holy shit.
it shook the house to where we stumbled, and we were like, "What in the," and everybody watching it heard it, saw us react, and we couldn't figure out what it was. We were running out. We're running outside to see where the vehicle is that hit the house,
Yeah, of
Nothing.
course.
And it was like, only thing we could figure out was like a portal had opened and something either came through or left,
like a crack,
And it
like a thunder crack. Yeah.
Right, but it literally shook the entire. You know, like when a real close lightning bolt hits and thunder shakes your house. It
Oh,
was
yeah.
that on crack. Like it
Oh, my
shook the
God.
entire house, and the windows rattled and everything. And we were like, "What in the frick?" So that was a pretty unnerving
You see 'em?
experience because I'm like, and then you look around and there's no explanation as to what could have caused that. You know,
I'm
so we ended
cussing,
up
so I'm
having
turning
pretty
that back
early-
on. You got me cussing. I turned my thing back on for a minute.
Oh, it's you tonight,
You know.
Lee. I'm not the one cussing it. I like it.
It's me tonight.
Yeah, always
It's
laughs.
usually Blaine.
We
What are
always
you cussing
laugh
for?
and say,
Well, I
The
don't know. I'm
disclaimer up there
Southern. I don't
because
know.
of me.
It just comes out.
because I'm a military guy. I have no filter no more, but I'm learning
married
to
to a
control it
military
a lot
guy.
better. But
Yeah.
yeah, dude, I've
like
had that same experience before, where it felt like the roof was being taken off. I thought we were getting hit by a tornado.
Yeah, it's even hard to explain
Very.
unless you've actually felt the power of that and experienced it. It's just like unreal amount of energy, you know.
Yeah,
It's like whoa, and the crazy thing was we heard those heavy footsteps coming up right up the stairs toward us. I'm at the top of the landing with my piece out, and I
Yeah,
felt like
of
it came right up on me, and then it just stopped. It was the weirdest thing. And the two guys with me were like, "What the freak was that?" You know, and we were just like kind of blown away because they were, you know, it felt like someone was coming up the stairs in the house
Sure.
with us. And then we go back in to that room, and it wasn't 30 seconds later. Boom, and the whole house shakes. We kind of get our balance.
What happened there?
So we don't
You
know. You know, there's really no explanation. The only thing we could surmise or maybe, you know, guesstimate what it was like a portal opening up or something.
Mhm.
And I've heard some weird pops over my time doing this. Like when that guy took a spirit off me one time, it made a real loud, like light bulb pop sound.
yeah.
And
Crap.
but this was 1,000 times more, you know, shaking an entire house.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like an earthquake. It was unreal.
Yeah.
I couldn't, you know, so what it was, I
I
don't
wish I
know.
could have
It
been
was
there.
not, it was not, it was pretty scary.
It would be, yeah. Woo, that's scary.
I've been the rear one day
You
that
know.
went, "Can you do that again?" You know,
No, I wouldn't ask them to do that again.
No,
If they
no.
did it again, if I
Like I
asked
said,
them to do it again, and they did it, I'd probably be jumping in the car and rolling.
that would be my validation if they
But
did
we
it
smelled,
again.
we smelled rotting flesh smells in that house.
Oh,
Stinky
shit.
poop smells, the whole gambit.
Yeah, I
of
had
what
that.
you would
Yes.
think would be some sort of demonic or negative haunting. You know, it had pretty much the whole gamut at that place. Crazy, growly EVPs. You know, we really felt like there was some women that were tortured there in a very bad way. Some of the responses we got and on the ghost boxes and EVPs we gathered. And we had talked, you know, two sheriff's guys ran that place for the owners. And they were telling us all the calls that would go there back when there
Oh,
was people
crap.
there, a lot of drug abuse, sexual abuse, the whole nine. You know, it's just a very nasty, nasty place.
Yeah, sounds like it. Dave, was the energy in
So-
there when you walked in? Was it really heavy?
Yeah. Yep.
Dear.
And I took another thing with that case too, is I went there 3 different times because I wanted to, you know, and there was another group that had been there. You could tell whoever this kid was, he literally had a major attachment, if not a early possession. He was
Uh-oh.
little skinny kid and he was drooling, he was contorting in these weird ways. And he went up to this real buff dude that they had with him, and he was just like smacking him and stuff. And this dude would have just beat him to a pulp if he wanted to, but
Yeah.
he knew, he was smart enough to realize this kid had something major going on. And so that was another thing. And then some of the pictures I took, and I'm not a big believer in what you see in windows because of pareidolia and stuff,
Sure.
but this was a straight up, I mean, there was a four pane window in the kitchen, right? All 3 panes were, and I wasn't using a flash. I never use flashes when I take pictures. In one painting, there was a straight up, what we would say, a demonic devil looking face with horns and the whole nine. None of the other things had any pareidolia, anything, and this was clear as a bell. So,
See,
like I said,
that's
you'll
why I
never hear
wanted
me
you on the
say,
show. That right there, because I knew you had had experiences and you were so particular about your evidence. It was obvious watching your shows. So that's why I wanted to have you on the show. Yay.
well, you got to be skeptic. I mean, you'll never hear me say, hey, I know for a fact that's a spirit, a picture of a spirit. Pretty compelling, kind of trippy looking, but as an investigator in this stuff, there are no certainties, and then you have to use discernment, because what I like to do is I'll say I'm using 5 pieces of equipment, whatever they are, doesn't matter, right? 5 pieces of equipment. I also document, okay, you walked into this house and you feel this horrible sadness or heaviness or whatever it may be, right? Because you guys know the more you do this, the more you can feel it with your body. You kind of get more attuned to it, right?
Right.
So you feel this stuff. Then you're getting hits on, say, 3 out of 5 pieces of that equipment. Then you get an EVP on top of that. Then you have Ghostbox running, and you're getting responses that you can later back up with factual information. How do you explain that? You can't.
You can't.
So only then will you say, okay, this could possibly be paranormal in nature, because you still can't at this point say, I know it for a fact, blah, 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 blah. Even though you may know it in your own heart, you're experiencing something paranormal.
Yeah.
But you would, if you would say, I know for a fact it was a demonic entity, 100% I know it, you're backing yourself in their corner, because how are you going to prove that? You can't. So you got to use your brain when you're speaking and talking about this stuff. Anything else is just asinine, really,
Yeah.
You can say, look, I was feeling this. I got this. We saw this. Joe Blow over here got scratched on the arm, blah, blah, blah. Lay out everything that happened, and then tell people, make up your own mind. Because
you're so strong too, because you have all of that lined up, and it leads you to the perfect conclusion. Blaine, you got to ask this question here.
Me.
What's the biggest?
Oh, sorry.
Just say Gwen or Blaine.
I didn't hear what you said. So
I said Blaine. Go ahead, babe.
Okay,
No.
I was pretty sure I didn't step over poor Gwen.
Nope. I'm good.
What's the biggest misconception people have about
doing
ghost
like
hunting in the spirit
this.
world?
So you couldn't understand what I was saying. I'm so excited, Davis. Your fault.
Yeah. Something's cutting in and out. I don't know what it is, but
It's a gremlin.
gremlins again.
Always.
But
I think
to answer that question, I would
So what's
say,
the biggest misconception? Yeah.
I would say that there's a demon every week type of situation, and people going in
Right.
telling people
See,
that their
I
house,
told you he's
their
the
house is
bomb.
demonically infested. Don't ever tell nobody that. I mean, come on, man. You can ruin people's lives by doing that.
Sure.
If you really think it's a demonic infestation of any type, what do? What's the smart thing? You call in clergy, people that specialize in clearing that type of thing. Whatever the victims or the family that experiences that, whatever their religious background, it doesn't matter. Buddhism, Islam, it doesn't matter. Whatever they've subscribed to, that's who you bring in to clear that type of situation. And if they don't have one specifically, you can use a shaman, you can use metaphysical people, you could use any minister. It's all about intent, right? Anyone that has good intent to flush out any negative type of energy out of a location, you can use that forte. Okay. But you have to, those people have to subscribe and do what is asked of them. If they don't, then they're not getting rid of it. They're not going to be able to get rid of it. They got to claim that space as theirs now. And they're not going to tolerate any type of negative energy coming into their space. And they have to use and do it until it's gone, and it doesn't always work 100%, but they can keep doing it and own that space as their own.
Very
Good answer.
Good. Yep. Very good answer. All right. Let's see. Whose turn is it?
It's Lee's.
It's
Lee's.
mine. So somebody starting out in the paranormal investigation, people that are just starting out ghost hunting, what's one thing you would warn them not to do?
Don't provoke anything.
Thank you.
Thank you. See, I
Bingo.
told you guys.
Don't ask,
far.
don't ask if you're some kind of badass and think that you're above all this. And, there's a lot of people that are skeptics that don't believe in it. And I've seen it happen over and over. They go into a place that's notorious. They run their mouth like there's some Johnny badass. And then next thing you know, they're all scratched up or they've got an attachment when they go home and their life gets turned up. I've seen it happen numerous times to people. But, you can be strong and talk sternly. And every place is different that you go in the paranormal world, right? You're not going to go into an orphanage where kids were killed and abused and talk like you're some badass to these little children spirits that may or may not be a child still lingering there for whatever reason. We do know that negative entities will mimic children to gain your trust. And then you're in a big time world of,
Thank
because you let this thing in. You have to be stern in some occasions, but you just be mindful of where you're at and how you're talking. Like we said earlier in the show, we could all be just sitting around BSing. Next thing you know, man, there's all kind of stuff going on because the spirits want to interact with that, And how many times have you seen when you've been on an investigation, you're in a room getting some crazy stuff going on, and then somebody walks in and it all just stops because they're an energy killer. The spirits don't like that person for whatever reason, and they just stop. I've seen it happen hundreds of times. So it's a crapshoot when you do this stuff, guys. But don't provoke anything. Be respectful as much as you can. Like even for me, like when I went into prisons and jails, I knew how to talk to those inmates when they were alive, and I use the same type of situation. If they give me respect, I give it back to them. If they don't, then I do what I got to do. And I've been attacked a few times in jail situations that were not fun, trust me, spiritually. So, just be mindful. Like I said, it can be dangerous. Be careful.
Yeah.
Well, I've got one last question because we're getting so close to the end, and I hate
This
it.
would be
I wish I
Gwenny.
could stretch it out. This is wonderful. We got to have you back. See, I
Anytime.
told you guys you'd love him. All right, Gwen, you gonna do it? You think you can see
Yeah,
it?
let me put the glasses on so I can see.
Put them extra eyeballs on,
I got
girl.
my bifocals on. I'm okay.
Eyeballs on. There you go.
All right, here it comes. Well, shoot, I hit the button. Wait a minute.
You must have hit it wrong.
There we go.
All right. After everything you've seen, do you believe we're dealing with spirits of the dead, something entirely, or something else entirely, or a mix of both?
That's a great question.
It is.
Personally, in my
Sorry, puts you on the spot.
humble opinion, I believe we're dealing with spirits of the dead. We're dealing with entities.
Yep.
We're also dealing with interdimensional and extra dimensional beings of all sorts. There's no listen, guys. There's no set anything when it comes to the paranormal, any kind of paranormal phenomena.
None.
Anything and everything's on the table. That's why I always say, don't get caught up in that little box. Think outside the box, because if you do that, then it's better overall as an investigator. Don't think everything's in this nice, neat little package, because it isn't. It just isn't. I've tried that early on in doing this stuff, and it just never works out that way. And like I said, most times you're left with way more questions than answers anyway. That's just the nature of this. And I've been to locations many times, like take Bobby Mackey's, for example. That was on way back when. It was on my bucket list. I had to do Bobby Mackey's. So I went there at like 5 different times. First time I went, nothing. I was really disappointed. It was like totally dead. Nothing. No pun intended. But no paranormal activity hardly at all, right? And I was like, man, what is this? They say this is the portal to hell. This place is off the chain. I got nothing.
Nothing.
So I went back about, I don't know, not quite a year later, and it was off the freaking chain with stuff. Saw one of I chew Copenhagen, so I had set an empty can on this table like 30 feet away from us. We're over here. We've got some equipment running in the dressing room where that woman was murdered, right? We got some equipment going off, and next thing you know, my chew can flies completely across the room in front of our faces and hits and goes bing, 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 bounces all around. Nobody's over there. We're all right here together. There's 3 of us.
Because he was a stone man.
So, yeah, you know what I mean? So that was just one example.
That's
and
crazy.
I go there for the 3rd time. Not so much activity this time. Fourth time, a lot more activity. Fifth time, activity again. So you just never know. Just because you go somewhere once and you don't get anything doesn't mean it's not haunted. You can't make these spirits do tricks like a circus.
What was
clown
the name of the guy that lived upstairs at Bobby Mack?
Carl.
Disappeared.
Carl.
Yeah.
When I went there, he's the only one that came through for me. Everything else, like you said, dude, it was dead. And usually where I go somewhere, they don't shut up. But
It's
Carl's
just,
the only one
it's
that
just
talked.
the nature of the beast. You know, you never know what you're going to get.
What happened to Carl?
He died.
Yeah.
Well,
He
got
was
that
very
part, but-
spiritually messed up. I mean, he was possessed.
Oh.
I would truly believe he was possessed. I talked to Carl on a couple of sessions and got some really compelling answers.
Yes. That's what I got.
He said it was definitely a demon or demons in there, and he was possessed, and that's what killed him basically over the long term.
Wow.
And I got to go into his apartment and stuff before, like, they let regular people in there. We were one of the first people after Ghost Adventures to actually get in there, and because Bobby, I kind of know him from a ways back now, and he let me go in.
Love
But
him.
it's a shame they tore the place down. They should have kept it open just for paranormal stuff. But it's one of those.
They're building another one, right?
They already, he's got a whole new honky tonk now. It's not on the same place though.
Oh,
Now, Dave, I want to ask you one
Sure.
last question before we get you off. If you've been to a location where spirits knew you as soon as you got there,
Yeah, ones that I've been to previously. Yeah,
no,
they knew
the
my name.
first time, you've never been there before.
One time maybe that I could say, but I'm not sure. It wasn't very clear, but it said my name within 5 minutes of being there. And I'm like, and I was trying to get further responses, but it wouldn't say nothing else. It just said, "Hey, Dave," like that. And I was like, what?
I get it everywhere I go. I'll get, what the hell's he
he
doing?
does. He's not exaggerating because I
Gwen
was
saw this in
meeting with him
person.
one of the first times, and it said Blaine, and he had walked out the room, and he just came in, set his drink down, and went out, and bam, Blaine calling for him on the ghost box. It flipped me out. I was like,
Well,
"Wow,
spirits
who is
do
this
follow
guy?"
us.
Mhm.
Spirits can follow us. They're not on the same time frame we are. They can move instantaneously.
Sure.
They're not on a clock like we are. Once you cross over, it's a whole different world, a whole different ball game for them. They move at different speeds
It's
than us.
beautiful too, yeah.
They're on a different timeline. So
Oh, yeah. Well, what's funny for me, I had a buddy call me from Alcatraz one night and said, Blaine, they're calling for you on the ghost box several times. And then, there you are. Come on. And the same night, I had a buddy call me from Gettysburg and said, dude, they won't shut up about asking.
I've had that happen too. People call me, they're saying your name first and last. I'm like, what? But who knows?
We've
But that's
had
places
something like
I've
that
been to
happen,
before.
actually.
Places
Yeah.
I've been to many times before. Gettysburg is one of my favorite places. I couldn't even
Me
count
too.
all the times I've investigated that place.
Oh,
Well, we'll be going back this year.
Oh yeah.
We're going to be there for
are you going to be there in
the Gettysburg
July?
Bash.
I usually go every year. I didn't go last year because I was filming, and I can't. I'm pretty tight on my schedule right now because we're filming a lot of TV and movie stuff. So it's hard for me to say, yeah, I'm going to be at this conference. I got certain ones locked down. My speaking schedule's on my website right now that are locked down that I know I'm not filming no TV or movie stuff right now. There could be more dates added, but I didn't get to go. Usually I'm there almost every year unless I'm filming or something. But
Yeah. Well, I hope you get to go this year, dude, because I'd love to meet you in person where we could talk a lot
Yeah.
more and compare
cool.
stories. See,
yeah,
last
well,
year
I don't know if I'm
we-
going to be at Gettysburg or not. I couldn't say this year for sure yet.
Well,
We're
if you're
going
there,
to
brother,
New
we'll have
Orleans
a
and
conversation.
Gettysburg.
And like last year, I couldn't do nothing because I got cancer from those nice burn pits in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Oh yeah.
So I couldn't do jack nothing last year. So I'm making up for it this year. I'm going everywhere that'll have me this year.
I hear you. Got to do what you can when you can, right?
Thank you.
Here's the last message for us. Dave, thank you for being on. And Gwen's just about to take us out. So I just wanted to say we will miss you. Please come back. Dave Speaks. We
Please
love
do.
you.
Anytime, guys.
Family Spirit International. Look at the little ghosties. Isn't it
Don't
Yeah,
get
cute?
us
just,
wrong. You know what?
please,
I gotta say this. Hold on for you. Kill this out, Gwen.
Gotta say his thing.
Gotta say my thing every show. You had 1,000 choices for your entertainment tonight. You chose us. Thank you.
Yes,
Oh,
thank
my
you.
pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, come back
Yeah.
soon.
Check out my
You're the
website,
bomb.
guys.
Definitely will, brother.
All right.
All right.
Have a good
Have
night,
a good one.
everybody.
Good night.